So let's go ahead and talk about Toram Online. So Toram Online was developed by Asobimo, which are developers of Arcus Online, Alchemia Story, and Ababel Online. It was released on May 14th of 2015. And as of 2022, the average player base for this game on the daily is about 1,109 people, which I honestly think is pretty good. It supposedly used to be a mobile game. Not supposedly, it actually was for iOS and Android. And then it became available for PC without an emulator via the Steam engine, which is where I found it when looking up free MMORPGs. It is a massively multiplayer online role-playing game with a fantasy setting. It claims to have 500 billion combinations to make a unique character, but I'm not really sure how accurate that number is. It does have a pretty decent character creation. The character classes themselves are rather limited, but it does have a skill tree system and player-created combinations, which I guess does allow for more personal customization. As far as the music and stuff goes, the music's actually really, really good. Unlike Fly FF that kinda has the same loop that's all too short and becomes kind of annoying after a while, the music here does have similar loops, but they're much longer, and I think that they fit the setting just a lot more, and I did feel like there was a lot more variety between the cities and fields. The equipment in the game seems to be focused more around a sort of crafting system. It makes use of both raw materials and processed materials. So, not only do you need metal, but you'll need specific types of metal. So if you fight a monster, you can get hematite, or cracked rock, or something like that. You may even get small hilts, or something similar to that. But if you go to a blacksmith, you can take all those extra things that you've acquired, like the cracked pebbles, the hematite, the ore, etc., and you can process that down to just your base material, which is metal. But on top of needing just that base material to create the equipment, you'll also need the hematite, you'll also need the small hilts. So it seems to be a bit of a balancing game of knowing what you want to create and just what materials you're actually going to need for that. It was kind of confusing whenever I first saw this, because I'm used to being able to just go to a merchant and then buy equipment. You might still be able to do that, but I wasn't able to really explore a lot with the merchants, so I'm not really sure what kind of things that they have. But it would make sense that your armor and weapons would come from a blacksmith, but if that's not the case, I guess it's not so bad. There's also a lot of other systems as well, such as the synthesis system, which uses crystals, and naturally you can only add those to equipment that has a slot in it for that, which again adds on to the character customization. But other than that, it seems pretty simple. It seems just like this basic system when it comes to MMOs, so it's not very hard to pick up. The battle system is very simple as well, and it's very cut and dry. The only thing I found odd was using the F button in order to target a enemy. I'm used to using tab. Luckily, you can change your keys around, which is something I'll probably end up doing in the future. And the game does allow you to click some things, but not as many as I would originally think. So you originally have to select the enemy by using F to search. It'll target the nearest enemy, and then you press F again to initiate your auto attacks. And then from there, you can use your skills. Again, there are your basic skills, which you use skill points in order to level up. Then you have to go through another menu in order to add them to your hotbar. I kind of figured out how to do this on my own, but there are tutorials that do teach you how to do it, and I would highly suggest checking out the tutorials because there are a lot of menus and not a lot of them make sense. Clearly this was a game that was translated at some point. There are some mistranslations, there's some grammatical errors, some of the sentences aren't structured properly, and so navigating the menus can kind of be difficult at times. But I wouldn't say that the battle system is enthralling at all. It is just like any other free-to-play MMO. It's just very basic. It's just hitting the monster and hoping that they die within a timely manner. However, I will go ahead and give Toram Online some credit. because the enemies do have special attacks, and it will show a red circle on the ground or a red line, and then you can move out of the way to dodge. So it's a lot more engaging than something like Fly FF, and in that sense it kind of reminds me of some, a simpler version of the AoEs in Final Fantasy XIV or something like that. But the game overall does have a pretty decent rating, and I can see where it's actually received mostly positive reviews. It does have a 7 out of 10 from Steam, and on Google Play it received a 4.5 out of 5. I would think that for a mobile MMO, this is actually pretty impressive. The graphics are nice, the music's nice, the character creation's pretty in-depth, like for a mobile RPG. But when you take it out of that whole mobile realm and you put it onto PC, it's a lot more simple, which is why I can see it having a lower score on Steam, which is only the 7 out of 10. As far as how the game looks, I mean, it has a charming anime aesthetic, and I've mentioned before that the anime aesthetic is super nostalgic for me. It reminds me of, things like Mabinogi and Bright Shadow, especially Bright Shadow, and I think that's what I kind of look for in any anime-themed RPG or MMORPG. I look towards something that reminds me of Bright Shadow, because Bright Shadow is just, such an amazing, cute experience. So whenever I do find those old-style MMORPGs, then that's really what I compare it to right off the bat. The boss mechanics in this game are actually what I found the most interesting, and that's because usually when you go into an MMO, if there is a sort of boss character, usually there's some sort of queue in order to get into a dungeon, because bosses are generally located at the end of a dungeon or in a raid or something like that. So usually you have to look for party, enter into some sort of queue, and then from there you can actually fight the boss. But in Toram Online, that's actually not the case. The bosses are actually out in the fields with all the other monsters. Like any free-to-play MMO where you have to do a lot of grinding, the fields and stuff are just littered with monsters that respawn every 2 seconds. So the fact that the bosses are kind of just sitting out amongst them is very interesting. But the thing is the bosses don't automatically attack you. They are their own instanced thing. So if you go up to the boss and you target them, a window will pop up asking if you're ready for the boss battle, in which case you can say that you are. And another cool mechanic when it comes to the bosses is you can actually use special items called holy gems. They're known as your support items. So using these support items, you can pick a gem from your inventory. Not really sure how you acquire these gems yet outside of the quests. Supposedly merchants sell them from time to time. But you can pick whatever gems you think will help you in the battle, and it will use one as soon as the battle starts. This can add to your dexterity, which increases your attack power and accuracy. You can actually use gems that will stun the boss for a certain amount of time. So you can pick and choose what effects you think will be most beneficial for you in the boss battle, and that to me is a very unique concept that I have yet to see in any other MMO out there. As for the story seems to center around your player being something known as a Straya. It's just a play on stray. It's essentially someone that goes out and travels the world in search of their purpose. It's just your typical adventurer, But I did notice that it quickly becomes known that you are odd for a Straya. Even though you look like a human, they basically say you look like a hume or hume, which is a typical word for human in any fantasy setting. So a lot of people will remark that you look like a typical hume, but that something about you is off or odd. And so many times you'll find someone saying that you're odd for a Straya. And not only that, but early on in the story, you find out that you've actually lost your memory. So you don't know where you came from, you don't know your past. And that kind of leads into the typical, chosen one storyline, where you're gonna find out you're just some important person from some other time or something, or that you have this, sleeping power within you. It's very stereotypical, but, if something's not broke, don't fix it. I mean, even though it's stereotypical, it's a storyline that works, and we see it in most fantasy settings. But in this world, I guess dark times are upon the world, as at one point there was a massive earthquake. This massive earthquake split the earth, and it took the power of 12 gods to fix it. And I don't know what happened to the old gods. You find out that you talk to one of these gods, and they say that they're not one of the original ones from the Cataclysm, so I guess gods can somehow be replaced. I don't know how that works, but it's just how it works in this. But yeah, so the Earth was split in two, and it took the power of the 12 gods in order to fix this issue. But supposedly the Earth kind of was reformed in a weird way, so the shape's not the same. I think that's part of like the grammatical errors or the translation errors. I don't see how the world not being the same shape would really matter, but they seem to make it sound important, so maybe it is, maybe it's not. I don't know. But ever since the world was kind of stitched back together, weird modified dragons are starting to cause havoc, and they're bringing hordes of monsters with them. And the people of this world are trying to figure out why this is happening and how to stop it. The dragons seem to be important. Someone mentioned that the dragons are the people that kind of keep nature balanced. So the fact that these dragons are no longer keeping that balance, the world seems to be plunging further and further into chaos, and so more and more monsters seem to be arriving. And the fact that there's a modified dragon with like dark objects stuck into its body that seems to be leading these monsters kind of leads the way into there being like another player somewhere, someone that's obviously controlling this situation. We don't know who it is, we don't know what it is. I'm sure that you find out that the longer you play, but I really just haven't gotten that far. I only played for about an hour and a half, which I generally do because I like these reviews to kind of be a first impression sort of thing. And just kind of giving you how I felt after the first hour and a half. Because if you're not entertained by an MMO within the first hour to 3 hours, then it's really not something that you're probably gonna stick with. So, but like I said, it's pretty clear that there is a deep lore here and an extensive story, and it really is easy to follow because it does have a lot of tropes to it, but it adds just enough uniqueness that you're kind of drawn into it. You're just like, oh, I wonder what's going on. I'm personally curious about the dragon. I want to learn more about the dragons and how they kind of fit in with the story of the gods. I'm kind of interested to see if any of the other gods exist. I love those types of stories in a fantasy setting, so I think it'd be very cool to actually like check that out and see what's going on there. So it actually does have me interested, so I could see myself playing a little bit more of this game in the future. I know I keep bringing up FlyFF, but FlyFF was really devoid of a story. It had a story, but it just wasn't clear enough, and it wasn't enough to really draw me in. So even though the game's kind of charming, just the slow experience gain and the fact that there wasn't really a story to really motivate me to keep me going, that's kind of why I don't see myself playing any more of FlyFF, but I could see myself playing more of Toram just to figure out what's going on, at least for a little while. The game does have both tutorials and achievements. I know that I mentioned the tutorials before, and I would highly suggest checking those out, especially in the menus. I don't know how long they take, but I think it'd be in your best interest just to give them a go, especially if, you're very used to other MMOs. I play Final Fantasy XIV on the daily, so jumping from one MMO to another can kind of be jarring sometimes, so these tutorials are kind of handy. But yeah, the achievements are really cool, but they show up above your chat bar, they give you items, you can get experience gains, 10% for like a day, they'll give you in-game currency, you can gain just experience in general and healing items, so it's pretty cool that it does have an achievement system. I know that there's a lot of free-to-play MMOs that have similar systems, but this one's actually, it seems to be very giving, and, it does make you feel good when you get achievements, so I'm not going to argue against that. But the only thing I actually found that was really weird about this game was the registration page. A lot of times, these free-to-play MMOs will actually let you create a character and stuff, and you don't have to register your account or anything. I really don't trust this process. I have a bad habit of losing accounts and losing characters because I just choose not to register, and then something happens and then they can't find my data, or I don't know, something doesn't save correctly. So I was trying to set up my account, and when I was trying to do it, it took me out of the game, took me to a web page. The web page had nothing. It didn't have any designs on it. It didn't really link to what looked like a good website. It was just plain text asking for my email, asking me to put in a password or whatever. It looked very shady, so I had to make sure that it was okay before I did anything. And then when I put in my email the first time, it never sent me an email. It wasn't in my spam, it wasn't in my main folder. So about an hour later, I tried again, and then finally it sent me to another page that said, hey, we've already sent you an email. So I checked my email again. The first email had never arrived, but a second one arrived from my last input, and then I was able to click the link, register my account. So all of that should be good, but it was just really weird. It didn't seem like the website was very responsive, and like I said, the whole thing just kind of looked shady. So that does worry me a little bit. There were no glitches or anything weird that I noticed when I was playing. I do know that when I was in the mines, there was one enemy that was kind of floating in midair, but then when I attacked them, they went back on the ground. But other than that, I ran into no other glitches, no other issues. Again, I'm going to mention FlyFF. When I was playing FlyFF, the server seemed to be like crashing at some point, as there was some issues going on, and the server would get super slow, and my character wouldn't be able to move, but then would jump forward suddenly. So it didn't seem very stable, but Toram Online seemed to be very stable. Everything was very smooth. The only thing that took a long time was after the character creation. I was kind of laughing to myself, and I was starting to say that this was loading screen simulator because of how long it was actually taking to get into the game. But after that, even for all the loading screens that there are between the areas, they actually go very quick, and just everything's very smooth. The battle doesn't take very long. Sometimes it does take a lot to avoid enemy attacks. I'll see the ring for the attack, and I'll try and move, but then the attack's already happened. So not sure if that's an FPS issue or what it is, or whether or not it's just bad coding, but sometimes things like that can be kind of difficult. But other than that, I have not had any glitches or any problems with the game. It plays really well, and it does seem like it'd be a nice time killer. I'll say that only an hour in, and I found myself unable to progress because my level was too low. The story goes really, really fast. They tell you that they want you to do the main missions before you start taking in other quests, but even at level 16, 17, 18, I had yet to see any other quests pop up, and it was just the story. So I'm not sure if that'll change soon, where there'll be tons of quests in the town, but right now it just seems very on the rails, and it just wants you to get through the story. So maybe that'll change, maybe that won't, we'll just have to see. But it does seem super, super fun, and like I said, I can see myself playing more of it in the future. But that's really all I have for this one. It was super charming, it was just really, really nice. I'm glad that I actually tried it. I would like to try more of it in the future just to see where it goes. I do like the fact that I was able to take screenshots and stuff, and that it didn't seem as complicated. I like the fact that I can map my own buttons for how to like change around my UI and stuff, and it seemed very comfortable to play, very easy to get into, and like I said, for a mobile game that was put on PC, it does seem super simple, but for a mobile game, I could see where this is actually pretty advanced stuff, and it looks really good on PC for what it is, so I bet it looks amazing on mobile. I would say give it a try. I mean, you really got nothing to lose. I haven't seen anything as far as like microtransactions or anything like that, which I was really surprised. Usually games like this try and shove those things down your throat. So the fact that there wasn't anything like that immediately just really caught my eye. I'm used to a billion menus popping up at once whenever you join a free-to-play game like this, because again, they try and shove those microtransactions down your throat, they try and get you to buy all their crap, and they try and like add all these extra systems in order to really get people to play. Usually games like this are very pay-to-win, but so far I have not seen anything like that on Toram. I just don't know if they hide it a lot better, or if it just is non-existent anyways. But because I like Toram, I'm actually interested in checking out the other games that Asobimo has actually done. So Arcus Online, Alchemia Story, and Ababel. You know, because they've developed this one and it looks so good and it plays so well, I'd probably check out their other games too and see if those ones kind of live up to the same sort of I guess, reputation that I've given this one. So, but yeah, so it's pretty highly rated, and like I said, it's free to play. It's got a good design. I saw some characters that were higher level, and it seems to be that they have a lot of cool costumes. They've got some limited time events going on, so you can get some limited items as well. Clearly, I'm not at the level to do any of these events, but yeah, no, I mean, once you reach those sorts of levels, it seems like they have some special events where you can get some cool weapons, some cool armor that make you kind of stand out and whatnot. And they do have a nice chat system. They have a guild system, I saw, so there's a guild system, there's emotes, you know, the town seemed pretty occupied, so I could see someone hopping into this game, forming a party, and actually making some friends. So, yeah, no, definitely go and check this game out if you haven't already and you're looking for something new to play. Let me know what you think of this game in the comment section down below. If you've played Toram before, just let me know, like, how long you've been playing it, and, yeah, no, I mean, I might party up with some people, especially if I get further along, and I wouldn't mind some advice either. So if you have any advice or, you know, any tips for this game, if it's something that you play rather avidly or if it's something that you've played before, then yeah, of course, let me know in the comment section down below. But thank you so much for watching this video, and as always, I will see you all in the next one. Alright, ciao you guys.